in a story, on a storyline. We have the color page, which is all about color. We have the fusion page, which does the effects and graphics and things like that. We have the Fairlight page, which is all about audio mixing. And so this is the kind of thing that you would traditionally need to use several different apps for, but it's all built inside of Resolve. And so here we have the pages of Resolve. They're actually represented by these buttons that are down below in the interface of Resolve. So here if I bring up Resolve, we see these buttons right here. And this is how you switch in between those different apps to do the different parts of your video editing. And there is a lot to go over for every page here. I mean, every page is its own huge monster. And we're going to go over the basics of each of them so that you aren't lost. And you'll be able to use each page, at least in its basic form, by the end of this video. Resolve has a bunch of different effects and things that you would think about, like Instagram filters. It has stuff like that. It has blurs and film looks and different filters to stylize your video. It has a whole bunch of AI stuff built in. A lot of that is only available in the paid version, but I'll show you a couple of really interesting, unique things as we go along. It works with other plugins and all kinds of third-party tools and stuff. There's even specialized hardware that it works with. They have these unique editing keyboards, as well as color grading panels, which are really fun. And I mean, you can just go crazy. You can get this huge mixing board for Fairlight. Look at this, it's nuts. Or you can just use the free version on your laptop. That's the amazing thing about Resolve is it scales to your ability and your needs. You can use the free version on a laptop on a plane, or you can use the paid version with all kinds of hardware in a huge studio. And it's all using the same piece of software with just, little different features. So let's talk about the free version versus the studio version. People always ask me what's the difference. The long story short is if you are watching this video, you can probably use the free version. I would recommend that you get the free version, you download it, you open it up, and you start making stuff with it. If you get into some corner of Resolve where something's only available in the paid version, it will pop up and tell you. And I always recommend that you only upgrade if you keep running into that. It can do nearly everything I show you in this video. You can work with just about any kind of video. You can even collaborate with other editors online with the free version. You can render up to UHD, so that's a little smaller than 4K. That's like the consumer 4K. It has color grading, it has fusion compositing, it has Fairlight. You can use it for commercial work. There's no demo period, there's no watermark. It's just a ridiculously good deal. It's free. There's no catch. It's just awesome. Now, for the studio version, you do get a bunch of really cool stuff. Most notably, Resolve effects, which are just a lot more effects to stylize your video, as well as all the AI stuff. There are a lot of new AI features that will do things like sweeten your audio or cut out a person walking across your video so you can put graphics behind them. And there's a lot of really nice little features that just make Resolve even better. Resolve Studio, you buy it once for $295. It's a smoking deal. There's no subscription. You just buy it for $295 and you get it forever. And so far, they have not been charging for upgrades. It's very possible they'll charge something for upgrades in the future, but even if they do, this is a smoking deal because there are a lot of really cool things in the paid version of Resolve that I would highly recommend getting the paid version for. But again, if you're just starting out, and even if you're not starting out, but you just don't need some of those features, use the free version. It's amazing and there's just no reason not to do that. So my answer is get the free version and see how it goes. Consider getting the paid version when you have some extra money, or if you need some of the really specific things the Resolve Studio will give you. But the free version is perfect for, 90% of people can totally use the free version. And this is really the reason why we teach Resolve at Graph Control is because our mission is to encourage and empower creativity. We want people to be able to create the things that they want to make. And right now, DaVinci Resolve is like the greatest tool for that. So I'm really excited that you're looking into it. Let's get into the actual software, shall we? By the way, I'm using DaVinci Resolve 20 for this video. In the future, whether you're using DaVinci Resolve 20 or 20.5 or 21 or whatever comes out next, 99% of what we're going over is going to apply perfectly. But if you're on Resolve 21 or something, probably not a big deal. Another thing to mention is that I am using the studio version of Resolve, but everything that I'm going to show you is in the free version. Okay? So don't be asking me in the comments, is this all in the free version? Do you even listen? So when you open Resolve, this is the first thing that comes up. Now this panel right here, this is called your project manager. This is how you navigate to your different project files. You can see I have some of these old projects here. Yours might look more like this, and that's totally fine. But here is where we open past projects and make new projects. And all of the projects here, you can see I have some of these older projects here. Yours might look more like this, and that's totally fine. But here is where we open past projects and make new projects. And all of the projects here, these live in our project library. We can browse our libraries. Over here. By default, you'll be working on your local libraries. Now, what the heck does that mean? So a library is just a database of your projects that lives on your system. It's basically just a folder that has your projects in it. Resolve is kind of picky about where that folder goes. It always wants to have access to just that folder. You can't just put projects willy-nilly all over the landscape. So by default, it's probably on your system drive. You can hit this little I and then click on Open File Location. And so for me, it's under C, Users, KC Documents, Resolve Disk Library. And if you go through a whole bunch of subfolders, you'll find all of your projects. Now, I wouldn't worry about this too much. Here's why. The only time you're going to need to open up a project is in Resolve, and Resolve knows where that is. If you want to save a project that's not in that library, maybe you want to save it and give it to somebody else, or you want to save it as a backup or something like this, all you have to do is right-click on your project. This is called your project manager. This is how you navigate to your different project files. You can see I have some of these older projects here. Yours might look more like this, and that's totally fine. But here is where we open past or hue versus luminance. That can be kind of nice sometimes. We also have luminance versus saturation. And so depending on how bright something is, you can adjust the actual software, shall we? Really slick. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. Actual software, shall we? By the way, I'm using DaVinci Resolve 20 for this video. In the future, whether you're using DaVinci Resolve 20 or 20.5 or 21 or whatever comes out next, 99% of what we're going over is going to apply perfectly. But if you're on Resolve 21 or something, probably not a big deal. Another thing to mention is that I am using the studio of Resolve, but everything that I'm going to show you is in the free version, okay? So don't be asking me in the comments, is this all in the free version? Do you even listen? So when you open Resolve, this is the first thing that comes up. Now this panel right here, this is called your project manager. This is how you navigate to your different project files. You can see I have some of these older projects here. Yours might look more like this, and that's totally fine. But here is where we open. Be asking me in the comments, is this all in the free version? Do you even listen? So when you open Resolve, this is the first thing that comes up. Now this panel right here, this is called your project manager. This is how you navigate to your different project files. You can see I have some of these older projects here. Yours might look more like this, and that's totally fine. But here is where we open past projects and make new projects. And all of the projects here, these live in our project library. We can browse our project libraries over here. And by default, you'll be working on your local libraries. Now, what the heck does that mean? So a library is just a database of your projects that lives on your system. It's basically just a folder that has your projects in it. Resolve is kind of picky about where that folder goes. It always wants to have access to just that folder. You can't just put projects willy-nilly all over the landscape. So by default, it's probably on your system drive. You can hit this little I and then click on Open File Location. And so for me, it's under C, Users, KC Documents, Resolve Disk Library. And if you go through a whole bunch of subfolders, you'll find all of your projects. Now, I wouldn't worry about this too much. Here's why. The only time you're going to need to open up a project is in Resolve, and Resolve knows where that is. If you want to save a project that's not in that library, maybe you want to save it and give it to somebody else, or you want to save it as a backup or something like this, all you have to do is right-click on your project and go down to Export Project. That will let you save a copy of your project to your desktop or to an external drive or to cloud storage or whatever you want to do. That's going to make a DRP file. That's short for DaVinci Resolve Project. This is a great way to do things, but just know by default, all of your projects live in your library, which is a folder that Resolve knows about on your system. You can have multiple libraries and multiple folders. We'll get into that some other time. Now, you also have network libraries and cloud libraries. A network library is for a studio that has kind of a server and all that stuff. You probably don't need to worry about that. Cloud libraries are shared projects. These are projects that you can actually share with other editors that have access to your cloud account. And so just like we have this folder on our local library, on our system, we can have a folder that lives on the Blackmagic website, basically, that you can all kind of share and access. And it's really slick. If you want a video about that, let me know and we'll talk more about it. But for now, all we really have to do is go down here to where it says New Project, and let's make a new project. And we're going to call this Intro to Resolve. To Resolve, like this. And we'll just say 2025, because that's the year that I'm recording this. And it's going to ask you for a media location. For now, let's just not worry about that. Let's just leave it at default and hit Create. Once you do that, it's going to open up the Resolve interface. This is where we actually have to start doing things. But first, a little tour. Most of this interface, like everything within the red box, is actually going to switch out depending on what page you're on in Resolve. Here we have the pages. And as I click on the different pages, that's going to switch out my interface. And kind of like we were talking about earlier, it switches it to kind of like a different app. But it's not a different app. This is all Resolve, and it all kind of shares the same project, which is really slick. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But that's the first thing I want you to do is go down here and just switch these pages and get used to switching out that interface. But where we're going to start is this far left page, the media page. All the way over here, click on media for me. And now all of panels have switched out for the panels for the media page. Now, something to mention here is that this isn't just switching a layout. This is actually switching into kind of a different mode. Even though there are common panels in between the pages, it's not just a different workspace. It's actually like a different mode of creating. So let's start talking about what the heck the media page is. Well, each page has a really specific job. The media page's job is to manage media. And so this is a perfect mode to put Resolve in when you don't have any media in your project and you're looking to put some in there. So a little tour of the interface. In the upper left, we have this panel, which is our media storage panel. This is a way to navigate on your system to any media that you want to bring into Resolve. So I'll just navigate to some media here. And once you find the folder up here, then you can actually preview the media just by mousing over any of these thumbnails. This is what we call hover scrub, because you hover over this thumbnail and it scrubs the video. That means it just moves that playhead back and forth so you can see what's going on. This is a great way to be able to preview the footage that you have before you bring it into your project. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, even though we're looking at this media here, the media isn't actually imported into the project. We haven't told Resolve to use the media. We're really just kind of using Resolve to go and find it. But we haven't said anything about wanting to edit anything or combine clips together or change them. So in order to change anything or work with this media, we need to import it into Resolve. To do that, real simply, we can just grab a piece of media here from our media storage and drag it down to this panel down here, which is called our media pool. It's going to ask if we want to change the project frame rate. We'll explain this a little bit later. I'll hit change right now. Okay. What that's going to do is put this piece of media down here in the media pool. Anything that's down here in the media pool actually lives in our project. So we've told Resolve that, hey, there is a piece of media called A0054191 blah, 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 and it lives on our system. Here it is. I want to actually work on this. And so we told Resolve that we're actually going to use this and play with it and work with it and edit it with other videos and all the fun stuff that Resolve does. All the
अरे मैं डूबने को पकड़ा था। बहुत बाकी रख ना उल्टा हो जा
project. So we've told Resolve that, hey, there is a piece of media called A00541. Blah, blah, blah. And it lives on our system. Here it is. I want to actually work on this. And so we told Resolve that we're actually going to use this and play with it and work with it and edit it with other videos and all the fun stuff that Resolve does. All the media up here in this panel is not in our project yet. It's just on our system. So as far as Resolve is concerned, it only really knows about this one clip. In fact, I would consider using this panel a little bit optional. It is a nice way to be able to hover scrub and kind of find the media that you want, but you could also just close this media storage and bring things directly into the media pool. You could do that a couple ways. You could right click here and say import media. You could go up to file and go down to import media, or you can just drag media into the media pool from your system. And so here I have a bunch of footage. I can grab any of these and just drag them into the media pool. And again, now it knows about this footage because I put it in the media pool. It lives in the project. So now we have 2 clips that we can work with. What if we had a bunch of clips? So I'll just grab a bunch of this and drag this in here. Now we have a bunch of clips here in the media pool. We have all these clips that we can work with for our movie, but it would actually help to start getting organized here. That's one thing that the media page is really good for, and especially working here in the media pool. You can right click anywhere here in this empty space, and you could go up and say new bin. That makes a little folder inside of the Resolve project where you can put different pieces of media. So we can put whatever piece of media we want here, just anything with the girl, let's say. Great. Let me just say girl. Sure. You can double click and open this, and we have our media here. We also have a list of bins over here on the left, which we can kind of navigate to. And it's kind of a little folder structure here. And so if we have another bin here, we can say wide shots. Sure. Let's pick all the wide shots here and put them in wide. Sure. And now we have these different bins here. We can organize this. We can also right click here in the bin list and say new bin. That works too. Bin 3. Sure. And we can put those into bin 3. We can also drag them like this. There are different views in the media pool. You can zoom these thumbnails in and out with this slider. You can switch it to list view if you want to see a little bit more information about your clips. You can switch this to metadata view, which is kind of a mix of the thumbnail view, and there's also a little bit more data on them. Most of the time I either use the thumbnail view or the list view. And this is really how we get organized when it comes to our media here in Resolve, all about the media pool. So I'm actually going to get rid of all of these just so we have no clips here. And I want you to do this with me. If you downloaded the media to follow along, you should have a folder called drag these folders into media pool bin list. Now this is going to be absolutely shocking, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to select all of these folders and I want you to drag them into the media pool bin list right here, just like this, right under here where it says master, and drop them. That's going to take Resolve a second, and then it's going to make bins out of each of those folders. So that's going to be organized just like it is in our Finder or Explorer window in these different folders. If you drag these into the media pool itself and not the bin list, it's just going to throw all of the media in there without the folders. So make sure to drag them here, all right? So now we have all of the media that we're going to use for the rest of this video. And feel free to open up the bins, go through it, and take a look at some of this footage. We have all kinds of fun stuff. We have a production meeting here with multiple cameras. We have footage that we're going to color grade later. We have footage that needs some compositing and some effects. And we have some clips that we're going to edit together into a story in the edit page. Now, I don't want to spend tons and tons of time on this, but I do want to show you a couple little extra things about the media pool. One thing that can be really helpful in the media page is the metadata. Now, over here, we have a metadata panel, which has nothing to inspect right now. But if I select the clip, that's going to show us metadata on this clip. Now, what is that? It's just basically information that is recorded with the clip. We can make this panel bigger by going up here and clicking where it says audio. That's going to close our audio panel here. In fact, any panel in Resolve pretty much has some kind of header like this, usually at the top. And when it's bright white, that panel is open. And when it's gray, it's closed. And so this is how we can open and close different panels in Resolve. And this is common to all of the pages. We're going to be doing a lot of that. So we have our metadata panel open here. And I can see all kinds of information about this, but there's actually even more information. If I go up here to the upper right, this little button right here, I can click this and say all groups. And that gives us just a ton of stuff. Most of this is stuff that we can fill in later. And so if you're the kind of person that really likes to be organized and really, you write notes about stuff and you tag things and you have labels all over your house and you have spreadsheets, this is the best place for you. You can write all kinds of notes about every single thing that you want for your piece of media here. You can write a description, comments, shot, scene, take, angle, all of this stuff you can do right here in the metadata panel of the media page. It's probably way more detailed than you ever really need to be. But here's what's really cool about that. Let's select this clip 24. I'm just going to double click on this clip 24 here. That'll load it up in this viewer. So if I double click on it, then I don't have to be hover scrubbing it. I can just scrub this up here in the viewer. And what I can do is zoom in by just rolling.
Minute.
सोच के की
metadata panel of the media page. It's probably way more detailed than you ever really need to be. But here's what's really cool about that. Let's select this clip 24. I'm just going to double click on this clip 24 here. That'll load it up in this viewer. So if I double click on it, then I don't have to be hover scrubbing it. I can just scrub this up here in the viewer. It's all over your house and you have spreadsheets. This is the best place for you. You can write all kinds of notes about every single thing that you want for your piece of media here. You can write a description, comments, shot, scene, take, angle, groups. And so if you're the kind of person that really likes to be organized and really, you write notes about stuff and you tag things and you have labels all over your house and you have spreadsheets, this is the best place for you. You can write all kinds of notes about every single thing that you want for your piece of media here. You can write a description, comments, shot, scene, take, angle, all of this stuff you can do right here in the metadata panel of the media page. It's probably way more detailed than you ever really need to be. But here's what's really cool about that. Let's select this clip 24. I'm just going to double click on this clip 24 here. That'll load it up in this viewer. So if I double click on it, then I don't have to be hover scrubbing it. I can just scrub this up here in the viewer. And what I can do is zoom in by just rolling with the scroll wheel here to this slate. This is the reason why we shoot with slates, is because then we can easily tell what scene and take a clip is. And we could, if we wanted to, go here into the metadata and kind of record that. So scene 4.5, take 5. So now we have that here in the metadata because we kind of read it off of here and just typed it in. We can do the same thing for other clips here. Let's find it. So this is 4.6, 4.6, take 2, 4.7, take 3. And you can go through and tag all of your clips with this. What's neat about this is I can switch this to list view and I can right click up here in this header. And I can pick any kind of metadata that I want to show. In fact, I'll uncheck a bunch of this stuff because I don't care about most of it. Just uncheck all the stuff I don't care about. And then just check the stuff I do care about. So for instance, scene, take. And then I can organize this by scene and take. And I can quickly see where my scenes and takes are, match that up to my script if I want to, whatever I want to do here. And so this is a really nice way to get organized. I could also right click here and select keyword. And here I could do something like, all right, this is an over the shoulder shot. So we could go into keywords here in my metadata and type OTS, that's short for over the shoulder, just like that. That's going to add that keyword here. And anything that I have that's an over the shoulder shot, I can just kind of page through here and see if there's anything else that's an OTS. This is sort of an over the shoulder shot. Sure, let's call it that. OTS, like that. Boop. Now we have these listed as OTS. So I could sort them by keyword, but I can also go to something called a smart bin. Smart bins are like a live filter. It's sort of like a folder that it puts a copy of things into based on whatever you set the smart bin to. And by default, if you click on keywords, it makes a smart bin for every keyword. So I can click on OTS, and that's going to show me just the OTS shots. And you can make keywords for absolutely anything you want. It can be completely custom, which is really neat. There's also these collections here, which will give you some quick things to sort by. For instance, video clips, audio only. And it even has a way with AI where it can kind of sort and categorize things. In fact, let's do that. Let's grab our audio only stuff. Let's just grab all of this here. I'm going to just shift click the end of that, right click, and go down to AI tools, audio classification, analyze. This is something that's only available in the paid version. I promise I tell you when there's paid version stuff. Any kind of AI stuff is pretty much in the paid version, all right? But what's neat about this is once it analyzes all that, then I can go and look for clips just with dialogue, clips with just music, clips that are more for effects. And there's also subcategories, and it will try and figure out clips that have things like effects in them, things like a door, things like a dog barking, things like laughter or liquid. Sometimes it does all kinds of weird things, like it thinks they're sheep or pig. They're more for effects. And there's also subcategories, and it will try and for paid version stuff. Any down to, in fact, let's do that. Let's grab our audio only stuff. Let's just grab all of this here. I'm going to just shift click the end of that, right click, and go down to AI tools, audio classification, analyze. This is something that's only available in the paid version. I promise I tell you when there's paid version stuff. Any kind of AI stuff is pretty much in the paid version, all right? But what's neat about this is once it analyzes all that, then I can go and look for clips just with dialogue, clips with just music, clips that are more for effects. And there's also subcategories, and it will try and figure out clips that have things like effects in them, things like a door, things like a dog barking, things like laughter or liquid. Sometimes it does all kinds of weird things, like it thinks they're sheep or pig. There's a toilet flushing sound. It nailed that one. And so that's kind of fun. If you have lots and lots of clips that you want to organize a little bit better, you can use that AI to do that. But again, that's in the paid version, and you don't need to do that. You can always make your own keywords and organize this yourself. You can even right click here and say add smart bin. And you can do kind of a live filter based on all kinds of stuff. So media pool properties, you can even do like things from a certain scene. If the scene contains, scene 4, then that's going to only show scene 4. And if we hit create, then we have the smart bin 1, which we could rename scene 4. And you could have one for each scene. All kinds of stuff you can do with this. This is especially helpful for documentaries and things where you have lots and lots and lots of footage that you need to stay organized with. Things where you have, 20 hours of B-roll. It's great to spend some time before you edit to kind of get this all organized here. And there are a few more things that you could do in the media page, but this is really what I use this for most of the time, is going through and getting organized, logging footage, putting metadata in, and just kind of getting our head around all of the media that's in our project. And I'm going to show you one more cool thing before we get into the edit page. And this is something that you can actually do in the other pages, but is a great thing to do in the media page as well. And that is syncing audio. If we open up our clip and play this back, we have the audio from the camera.
3, 2, 1.
The kids are talking, but you can't really hear them very well because the camera's really far away. Now we had a boom mic here where we were recording some audio so that we can actually hear them, but that recorded to a separate recorder. In fact, if we open up our audio here, this clip 108.
Scene 4, shot 18, take 3.
He said scene 4, shot 18, take 3. Scene 4, shot 18, take 3.
Scene 4, shot 18, take 3.
So how do we get this audio and this video to sync up? Well, you could actually put them together on a timeline, which I'll show you a little bit on how to do something like that later. But one thing that Resolve can do that's really great is we can take this audio. Let's actually just grab all this audio and throw this into that folder so we have all of the audio and video together. I can take this clip and this clip. I'm just holding control, selecting both of these. And I can right click and go up to audio sync, auto sync audio. This is something that is still available in the free version. And we're going to select synchronize using waveform like this and hit sync. What that's going to do, you just about miss it. What that's going to do is replace the audio in our video clip with the audio from that mic. So here,
Scene 4, shot 18, take 3.
that still works, but now go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
We can actually hear them because we have that good audio switched out. What's cool about this is we can actually select all of our clips. I'll just shift select all of this, right click, auto sync audio, and that's going to go through all of our clips and sync them together. So anything that matches with the other one is going to replace that audio. Now, some of the clips it didn't really work for, and that's okay. We can worry about those later, but for most of them, it worked. So it says clip 20 and clip 19. Let's look at clip 20 and clip 19. And there's not really any audio that we need to hear. There's not any dialogue, so it's really not that big of a deal. But from now on in our project, we'll hear the good audio
Fine.
instead of the on-camera audio. And that's going to make editing a lot easier. In fact, if we want to double check and make sure that things are synced up, we can right-click here in this header and find synced audio. And that's going to list the audio right here that it's synced up with that clip. Isn't that nice? Such a great feature. Next, let's talk about editing. And for that, I'm going to go into the edit page. I'm actually going to skip over the cut page for just a minute. But to switch to the edit page, all I have to do is click on edit. And that'll switch to the edit page, and we're ready to start working on our story. Now, a lot of what you do in Resolve is going to be in the edit page, because you can kind of think of it as like the hub for all of the things that happen in your video. The edit page is where we take all of these clips that we have in our project and we actually put them together in a timeline. The timeline is where we figure out the order of the clips and how long they take and which parts we use. And we're basically building our new edited video with the timeline. It's really all about building a story. And so if we're shooting a scene in a movie about Bill getting into his car, we can shoot all of the different pieces of this. Bill walking to his car, Bill getting in the car, Bill getting a phone call, Bill opening the door, Bill waving to the neighbor. We can shoot all of these things happening in any order we want, and then choose to change the order in our edit. So Bill opens the door, that's the fourth thing that we shoot, but we're going to put it first in our edit. Bill waving to the neighbor comes next. Bill getting a phone call, Bill walking to the car, and then Bill getting in the car. And so even though we shot this out of order, the order that we're building in our edit is Bill opens the door, Bill waves to the neighbor, Bill gets a phone call, Bill walks to his car, Bill gets in the car. This is the kind of thing that I'm so excited about when it comes to editing, is because what we're doing is we're building a story here. So everything in the edit page is about building that story. And that timeline is going to be where everything in our video lives, and we're going to make more tweaks to it later in these other pages. But for now, kind of keep that in mind, that that's our goal with the edit page. So let's talk about the interface. We are going to have some familiar stuff here, actually. We have these little buttons up here. When we click these and they're white, they open up different panels. And the panel that's open by default over here on the left is our media pool. Now this is exactly like the media pool in the media page. The only difference is instead of it being down here, it's over here to the left. But you can still do all the same things. This is all the media that lives in your project. We still have our bins. We still have our smart bins. We still look at our media in various different ways. But you can sort of think of this as like your cabinet of ingredients that we're going to use to make our video here. We also have a couple of viewers. This left viewer is called our source viewer. And this right viewer here is called the timeline viewer. What the source viewer is for is if I open up one of these pieces of media, double click on it, I can preview this piece of media. So I can scrub through this and preview this and look all through any kind of media that I have. And you do that just by double clicking on any of these pieces of media. And you can sort of think of this as like picking up something and looking at it. So if you have a snack in your cabinet, you pick it up and you look at it like this. But you haven't actually added it to your plate yet. All you're doing is just kind of previewing it, looking at it. So that's cool. You can double click on any piece of media to load it up here in the viewer. You can also switch this to this second mode right here with this little button. And this is called source tape mode. And what this is it basically takes all of your footage and it loads it all into this source viewer all at once and just kind of puts them all together. And so if I scrub through this, I'm scrubbing through this first clip. And if I go to this second part after this little tick mark, I'm scrubbing through the second clip and the third clip and so on. And so I can scrub through all of my clips in my media pool, at least in the bin that I have up here, all at once in one motion. This is great if you're looking for a specific shot visually that you want to lay over something. Makes it really, really quick to be able to find what you need to find. But you might find it less confusing, maybe a little bit easier just to use this first icon here, this first mode where you double click on a piece of media and load it up here in the viewer. Now, once we have a piece of media selected that we like, and we actually want to add that to our video, we want to put that into our edit, what we have to do is add it to a timeline. If the media pool is like our cabinet and our viewer is like picking up a ingredient from that cabinet, then the timeline down here, this is kind of like our plate. So if we want to actually eat something, we're going to put it on our plate. So if we want to add this to our video, I can grab this clip just in the middle. I'm just grabbing it and dragging it down here to our timeline. And that's going to add this clip to our timeline, which is like, putting an apple on our plate. So now we have an active timeline. We have this playhead that goes back and forth, and this is actually going to make the story of our video. Right now, our story is this. If we go all the way to the left and I hit spacebar to play, we have a bunch of black space here. We have an empty space, and then eventually our clip starts. And this is our full clip, not edited. We haven't done anything with this. It's just literally the clip thrown into the timeline. We still have people moving around. We still have the slate, all of that kind of stuff. And so if we were going to export this movie right now, and we were going to put this on YouTube or something, this is exactly what people would see, is 6 seconds of black followed by just this unedited footage that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But we've done something really exciting already. We've put this clip down onto our timeline, which means that we actually have a video in progress now. We could render this out, and it will be a video that's different than this clip. So we've done a little bit of magic already. We've created something. Now, it's not very good. It's not very interesting, so we can change that. But all of the magic of building our story happens down here in the timeline. So let's change our story to be a little bit better here. The first thing I want to do is I don't want this black right here. I don't want to watch 6 seconds of black before anything happens. So we can take this and just drag it to the left. And we always want this kind of pushed all the way to the left at the very start of our clip, because then we start with an actual video, right? We can zoom into this timeline by clicking this little plus right here. That's kind of our zoom bar. We can zoom in and out. And I can adjust this middle bar here, and I can move this up and down. And by default, we have a video track and an audio track added here. If I take the bottom edge of this audio track and I drag it down, that'll make these waveforms a little bit bigger. And so we can see a visual representation of what's happening in the audio. So the bigger the spike, the louder the audio. So we can see where the slate is right here. We zoom in here, we have these little spikes.
15, take 1.
That's where that slate made that spike. And so we're going to start sometime after this.
What was that?
So her saying, what was that? So that's a good place to start this clip. That's where it actually gets interesting. That's the part that we're supposed to show. And so what we can do is we can trim this and kind of cut out all of this part and just start the clip there. The way that we do that is we just mouse over the edge of this. And you'll see how my mouse kind of turns into this left bracket. I can grab this and then just slide this over like this. And I'll have that clip kind of start right there. This is called trimming a clip. So just like you would trim a hedge or something like that, or trim a piece of paper, you can cut off all the excess, right? So we're cutting off this first part. Let's play this back. I'll just hit spacebar.
What was that?
Great. I like that. Let's stop right after that. And I'll take the edge of this and drag this over here. And we can see the outline of the full clip. And we're just going to use that little part. There we go. So now this is a lot shorter, but we have all this black here. So we can take this and slide it all the way to the left, just like that. Okay. I'll zoom in here so we can see what's going on.
What was that?
Great. literally this, literally what I just showed you, picking a clip here, dragging it down, and then deciding where you want to start that clip. So maybe starting it right here.
Go check it out.
And trimming it to just be that part that you like.
Check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Trimming off all the excess. This is like the bread and butter of editing. This is like 90% of it. You can make so many amazing videos literally with what I just showed you. That's all you need. That's all you need for so much stuff. We're just bringing those clips in, trimming them, and then putting them here in the timeline. And ideally, there wouldn't be any empty spaces in between them. So we cut from one video
Go check it
to the
out.
next video. All right, we're putting these clips together, and that makes a new story. Just like in our example of Bill walking to his car, we're taking all these separate clips and then putting them together here in an order that we like in the timeline, okay? And what's cool is that we have control over this. We can do something like completely cut out the phone call. Bill opens the door, Bill waves to his neighbor, Bill walks to his car, Bill gets in the car. We can cut out this whole first part and just say Bill walks to his car and then Bill gets in the car. We are in complete control of this story, and it's all about where these clips go in the timeline and what order they go in. So this is so great. Let's get our hands dirty here a little bit. Let's make a story. So if we were to go to this second icon here, this source tape, and scrub through this, we can kind of get a good idea of the story here. These kids arrive and they see this crashed UFO. They're a little bit scared about it, so they kind of argue who should go check it out. The girl finally convinces her brother to go and check it out, so he walks towards the UFO. So he walks up to the UFO. They're both really nervous. And then as he walks up there, something moves. Ooh. So this is just a few clips from a scene from our movie called Tuesday on Earth. And so what's great is we have all these clips and we can choose to tell the story however we want. So a good way to start, oftentimes, is with a wide shot. And we want the wide shot that shows the first thing that happens, right? So we have the kids kind of riding up on their bikes, putting their bikes down. And so let's use that for our first clip. So that's clip 10. I'll just double click on that. That'll switch to our source viewer. I'll grab this and drag this down into our timeline. For this first clip, let's scrub through until we're ready, until something interesting starts happening. So right as they kind of get off their bikes, that's probably a good place to trim this beginning. Move this down. Let's play this back. I can hit Control F to play this full screen like this.
Whoa.
Great, that's about all we need right there. And so we could use that and trim it this way. We also have other takes here. And so let's scrub through this and see how this works. And you'll notice now when we scrub through things, the video changes on the right viewer. That's because, again, this is the timeline viewer. This is the preview of what your actual movie is going to be. This is just picking up footage from over here and looking at it. Nothing that happens over here is necessarily going to happen in your video. It's all about this viewer right here, the timeline viewer. If you forget which one is which, just scrub your timeline and see which one moves. We can scrub through this and figure out what we like for our different takes. Great, I like that. Let's trim the end and let's trim the beginning right after they start moving.
2, 1, action.
Okay, something like that. And move this all the way to the left. So we have our first shot of our movie, them getting off their bikes and walking up. Let's maybe go back into our source tape here, kind of scroll around and try and figure out what we should do next. Again, we're in control of this. That's what's so nice. So they end this shot by kind of standing there like this. So let's cut to them standing together. I think probably this shot right here, shot 31. But this time, instead of dragging this entire clip down here to the timeline and trimming it, we're going to do a little bit of work before we add it to the timeline. We're going to do that by setting ins and outs. See, in our source viewer, we're viewing the entire clip, right? The whole thing. And everything that might happen in that clip is not necessarily stuff we want to keep. Saying action, the actor having to sneeze, Bill waving to the neighbor, Bill waves to the neighbor again, awkward ending and cut. Most of that stuff we don't need. What we really want is Bill waving to the neighbor, right? So what we can do is kind of trim out the extra stuff in the source viewer before we take this and we put it down into the timeline. And so what we'll do is we'll set what's called an in and an out. An in is like the start of the clip that you want, and the out is the end of the clip you want. You can think of this like swimming. When you get in the pool, you start swimming, and when you end swimming, you get out of the pool. So an in is the beginning of your clip, and out is the end of your clip. So we're going to scrub through and try and find the beginning of our clip, which is probably going to be right before he starts talking. We kind of scrub through this, and then let's just play.
Go check it out.
Great. So yeah, we're right about there. And we want that to start there, so we're going to set an in. There's a few ways to do that. One of them is you can click this button right here, which is our set in button, like that.
No, wait, you.
The other thing you could do would be to hit I on the keyboard, I for in.
Go check it out.
Let's play this back and see what it looks like.
No way, you go check it out.
Fine. Okay. I'll go check it out.
Good. Now let's end the clip there, and we can either click this set out button, or we can hit O for out, just like that. Now we have these little gray indicators here. And what that means is that our clip is this long, but we're only going to use this part of the clip. This is what we're actually going to use. And if I click and drag from the middle of this clip down here, we'll see it's much shorter than it would have been, and it's already pre-trimmed. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't change it. We can grab this and we can take the edge of this and trim this, and you can see how big the original clip is with this little gray outline that shows up. It's just like we were to put this down and trim it. We just don't have to move things around in the timeline to do that. We could just kind of trim this beforehand and bring this in. And so what some people will do is go through all their footage and pick the part that they like. They'll kind of do some pre-edits. Like this, I for in. And I can also use the J, K, and L keys on the keyboard as these buttons right here. J plays backwards, K starts and stops, and L plays forwards. So you can kind of move things back and forth with J, K, and L.
Go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Fine. Okay. I'll go check it out.
Good. That looks good. I'll hit O for out. And I just grab the part that I want, and I can drag it down into the timeline, just like that. And so a great way to start getting things here on the timeline is just to go through all of your clips and pick the parts you like.
Check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Fine.
Reset. We don't want you to move too much.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. So we're gonna use the second take. I can scrub through this faster by hitting L twice. That's gonna go through this at 2x speed. And then I can hit K to stop, and then L to play back normal speed.
Go check it out. Right.
J to kind of reverse. I for in.
Go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Fine.
And again, I can just drag this down. So you can do this for all of your footage. And a good way to do this is just kind of throw all the footage into a timeline. And then remember, you can always move things around, change the order, and play around with things. And you can always trim it more or less. You really can't ruin it too badly. And so this is the fun part about editing, is creating this story. So let's just maybe cut to this second shot here. And I'll just trim this back a little bit to where they're kind of just looking dumb at this thing. And we'll cut from this wide shot into this close up like this.
Whoa.
Action.
Gotta cut out that action though.
Whoa.
Go check it out.
No way, you go check it out.
Fine. Okay. I'll go check it out.
Great. So we have the basic actions happening where they come up, they see something, they start arguing, and eventually the guy starts walking towards the craft. But we want to show this in a more creative way. And so we actually have these other shots that we can cut in between them and make it look a little bit more interesting. So for instance, when the girl's talking, we want to see the girl's face a little bit closer. So let's see if this take works.
Go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
And I like that little, wait, what? Like this right here. So let's trim that. And let's see if we can put this in there somewhere right after he says, go check it out.
Go check it out.
Right there. That's probably a good place to cut. Now, we haven't done this yet, but we have this clip, and this shouldn't go before or after. It should go right in the middle here. So what we can do is we can split this clip a couple of different ways. One way we could do it would be to go and click on this little icon here, this little razor blade, and that's going to turn our mouse into a razor blade tool. And whenever we click on this clip, that's going to split the clip right there wherever we click. So we can just chop this up if we want to. I'll hit Control Z a few times to undo that. What I like to do is figure out where I want to cut by moving this playhead back and forth, and then use a keyboard shortcut to split it. The default keyboard shortcut for Resolve is Control backslash. That's the backslash that's right above Enter, like the return key kind of in the middle of the keyboard. If you hit that, that will split this clip right where that playhead is. And then you can move the clips around and put this clip here in between them, like this. So now let's see what this looks like.
Go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
See how that kind of works?
Fine.
Now, we want to see him say fine, and so really this is kind of the same process. So we split it right there, Control backslash. And we might not use the rest of this, but we'll just bring it down there, out of the way for now. Have him saying fine. Let's see, where's another one? There we go, him saying fine.
No, you go check it out.
Right there, I like that. Let's trim that here. Bring this in like this.
Go check it out.
Fine.
Great. So he says fine here.
Fine.
Let's trim this. Put this in order. So now we're putting clips in the order for the story, but we're also choosing clips that show the story the very best. This is where it starts to get really fun.
Go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Fine. Okay. I'll go check it out.
Great. So we'll maybe cut right there. And now we have a sequence of a few different shots that really start to tell our story. And then it's up to you as the editor to go in and think about, okay, how fast should one clip cut to another clip?
Go check it out.
So he kind of pushes her. I feel like this should happen a little bit quicker. Go to that other shot. Anytime that you cut in between one shot and another, you can decide to show more or less time. And so you can kind of control time a little bit. This is the one part of the world where you can control time. That's what's really neat.
No, you go check it out.
Good. Let's cut that a little bit tighter too. Move this down.
Fine.
You notice how this cut works really well.
Fine.
The reason for that is because he starts to turn his head back in this shot, and he finishes turning his head on this shot. This is called cutting on action. That means that there's one action that happens in one shot that's continued in the other shot. And so our mind accepts the little differences in between the shots, and it makes it feel like they're continuous. Just like I start waving my hand in this shot, and then we cut to this shot, it feels like it's continuous, right? And that's because it is. I mean, this is I've recorded live, but that's what really helps, is that little tiny movement. And so looking for those opportunities to make those cuts a little bit easier. For instance, when he pushes her, she kind of moves a little bit. Maybe this happens in this shot too. Does he push her? Yeah, she moves forward a little bit. So maybe as she moves forward just a touch, maybe that'll work a little better. I can select this empty part and hit delete, and that's going to get rid of that gap. See how there's like that little movement. She's moving forward and moving forward a little bit there too. That might be a good cut. It might just take too long. We don't want to do that. We'll see. But that's all up to you. Now, a couple other things about adding clips. Let's go through here and let's add this shot right here, shot 24. This is what we would call their POV, sort of. It's actually an over-the-shoulder shot, but it's what they see. And so anytime that you're editing, especially when somebody's looking off screen and they have some kind of reaction, just like what's happening here, where they're walking towards and they go, whoa, then that sparks a question in the viewer's mind. What are they looking at? And so a lot of the time, it's a good idea to show what they're looking at in the next shot. Now, the next shot in the timeline right here is actually them standing. And it's sort of a problem because they're actually standing farther apart here than they are in this shot. And that's something you'll probably notice. Like, it looks weird. So we can kind of feed two birds with one stone here. We can answer the question, what are they looking at off screen? And we can bridge this gap to not be distracting by adding this shot in here. A couple ways that we could do this would be to zoom out, select all of our shots to the right, and move it down so that we have some space to put this shot. We can drag the shot in here. And we can set the in and the out on this shot, and we can drag it in here like that, and then kind of delete the gaps, and that would work. What's a little bit faster is to put our playhead right on that edge. You can tell it to snap to the edges by clicking this button right here. If this magnet is white, it'll kind of snap to the edges like this. If it's not, then it won't really snap. You can kind of put this wherever you want. I like to have snapping on for this kind of thing. Put this right on that edit, that edge in between the two clips, And what we can do is click one of these buttons right here. These are our edit buttons. This one is insert clip. And what we'll do is we can set an in and out, like the beginning and the end of this clip, something like that. And we can hit this insert button and look what happens. When I click this, it inserts this clip right where that playhead was, and it moves all the other clips this way down the timeline. So if I hit Control Z, we can kind of see what happens. Control Shift Z to redo it. It's just putting that clip in there. So now we have in our story, they show up and say, whoa, and then we see what they see. Ooh, yeah, baby. That looks good. And now we've forgotten how far apart they were in that first shot. So now we cut here and nobody cares. Works great.
Go check it out.
That's how we build a story here in the edit page. So cool. And this basic process works for any kind of video you're making, whether you're making a film like this or whether you're just doing a YouTube video, documentary, commercial. It's all about finding the clips you want, setting the in and out, and putting it on the timeline in some way. Whether it's dragging it to the timeline or whether it's using an edit button like this insert. There's also a couple other edit modes. For instance, overwrite, which just kind of pastes this over everything. There's replace, which will swap out the clip here for the clip that we're over here in the timeline. And you can click and drag here and drag this viewer onto this viewer, and you have a few more options too. For instance, place on top, puts that clip on top and on the next layer. We're always going to be looking at the top layer in our viewer, but we can decide to turn this off and move this around without overwriting this clip. One handy edit button here would be append at end. If you drop it on this append at end, it's going to throw this clip, whatever we have selected here, at the end of our timeline, which is great if you're just kind of gathering the clips that you want. You can just double click, set your in. Okay, drag it over here, append at end. You don't have to worry about where you are in your story. You can just kind of go through here, pick the parts you like, append at end. You don't really have to worry about it. Great, append at end. And you can throw those all in the timeline, and then you can move them around and adjust them and trim them and split them and all the stuff that you need to do. So if you want to get really used to how the edit page works, I would highly recommend grabbing this footage, dragging it down into the timeline, and just trying to make a story out of these clips. Now, a couple quick tips that I think are pretty helpful for actually putting together a story here is I like to use what I call the anchor technique. This is something that we go into a little bit more in our end-to-end editing course, which I'll tell you more about in a little while. But the big idea here is that you start with one shot where multiple things are happening. So we have this wide shot of him walking towards the craft. We have her kind of looking around. And so we can kind of start with this as our anchor for this part of the edit. And then we can use these other shots to enhance it. So we have her kind of looking back and forth right here. We also have this shot of her kind of looking as he walks forward. We have the shot of her looking back and forth right here. And so we can take this shot and we'll just kind of trim this. And we can drag this up to a new track and kind of put this over our shot like this. So we have our wide shot here, and then we have the close up here. And we can kind of move this back and forth without overwriting this just because it's in that top layer. And we can kind of just play around with this until we feel like it works. Maybe we want to cut to a close up of him, which we have right here. Yeah, maybe this one. Sure. Again, we'll just drag that up like this. Maybe we'll just cut to this first and then cut to her. So we have him walking forward. And we can kind of mix these in however we want to make this scene not only have all of the actions that happen in the scene, but also make it look exciting and have a bunch of dynamic shots, right? And we can choose whether to use shots or not. I mean, we have this shot right here, which I really like, of her kind of thinking things over a little bit.
Check it out.
We can decide to put this right here if we want to. but we're using the shots that are already here down in the timeline to figure out where to put our other shots. So that's the anchor technique. Now for a couple of shortcuts. These are really, really important. Let's go ahead and put this right here. And let's say I want to trim this about this much. I can do that with my normal selection mode, my normal tool here, which is activated right here in the toolbar, or I can use the trim mode. That's this one right here. And what this does is it does similar things, but if I grab the edge like this and I bring it this way, it actually kind of sucks the clips down. And so I can grab the edge here and I can trim this, but it doesn't leave a gap. And so it's just a little bit quicker way to trim things. It's the exact same thing as trimming this with our normal selection mode, selecting this emptiness and moving it down like that. It just does this all in one little thing. The other thing this tool will do, this trim tool, is if you click and drag in the middle of a clip towards the top, what this will do is slip this clip. And that means that it's going to keep the same in and out, but it's going to use a different part of the clip. And so if I want to move it down like this and use this part,
Just what happened?
then that works. I can also slide the clip if I click and drag in the middle towards kind of the bottom of the clip like this. And that moves this back and forth, and it kind of trims the other clips around it. And this makes more sense if we have these all in one line. I'll just drop these in real quick. If I'm in the trim mode here and I grab this lower part, I can move this back and forth, and it trims the other clips there with it. So I can trim the other clips, or I can move this kind of clip back and forth. And so this is a nice way, if you don't quite have your clip settled in just right, you can use the trim tools to really kind of move things back and forth. And so it really, really helps, especially if you're trying to make an edit just right. And when you grab this and you move it back and forth, it shows this multiple view. And so we have the first frame and the last frame of this clip. Then we have the last frame of this clip and the first frame of this clip. And so you can see all of the transition points all on one view here. So trim tool is really useful, especially if you're trying to edit a little bit quicker. And speaking of editing quicker, keyboard shortcuts are very, very important. You can hit T to select your trim tool and A for your normal selection mode. Remember, A just kind of moves things around like this, overwrites things, but T will do the slip and slide and that kind of thing. You can hit B to go to your blade tool to chop this up however much you want. But again, I would highly recommend learning the keyboard shortcut just to split this at the playhead. Control backslash like that, because that's a nice way to do that. The other major keyboard shortcut I'd highly recommend learning is the ripple trim shortcut. Let's say I want to chop this part of the clip off, either by doing this and then deleting it and moving it down, or I could use the trim tool and move it down like this. Well, I can do that with a keyboard shortcut by aiming my playhead right where I want the clip to start and hitting Control-Shift left bracket. That's going to do all of that all at once. It's just going to trim this and ripple everything down this way. Ripple is the fancy word for moving clips down so that there's no gaps. And so we can ripple trim, Control-Shift left bracket for the beginning, and then if we want to trim the end, Control-Shift right bracket, like that. Now, you may notice that both Control backslash and Control-Shift left and right bracket take two hands on the keyboard. And so if you have one hand on the mouse, it's kind of awkward to remove your hand from the mouse and then hit a keyboard shortcut. It's slightly faster, actually, to probably just grab it with the mouse. And so to actually save time, I'd highly recommend customizing your keyboard shortcuts. So how do you do that? Up here in our DaVinci Resolve menu, we can go down to Keyboard Customization. And this is a whole big panel dedicated to keyboard shortcuts. And all you have to do is click on whatever modifiers you want and then whatever you would press after that modifier. So Control-Shift left bracket. And this will show you the command. So this is Start to Playhead. If I click on this, that'll open up Start to Playhead right here. And if you want, you can change the keyboard shortcut for this. So I have mine set to Q for Start to Playhead and W for End to Playhead. Let me kind of walk you through this because it's kind of annoying. So I'm going to switch back to my DaVinci Resolve shortcuts here. By the way, they have presets for shortcuts that are kind of like Adobe Premiere Pro and Apple Final Cut, Avid, Pro Tools. What I usually do is I set this to DaVinci Resolve, and I'll do this. This Control-Shift left bracket, this is Start to Playhead. If I click on this command right here, that'll bring that up right here. If I click on this little plus, that will make a little box here, and I can type whatever keyboard shortcut I want. So Start to Playhead, I'm going to select as Q. Great. Now, it's going to come up and say, Q is already assigned to something, which is fine with me because I'm never going to use this View Source Timeline Viewer. You might use it, but I'm not going to. So whatever you assign to it, it's going to tell you if that's already a keyboard shortcut. So I'm just going to say Assign. Now, it gives you a little warning here. The reason there's a warning is because neither of these keyboard shortcuts are going to work anymore because one keyboard shortcut is assigned to two things, which you would think it would just do both things, but it actually does neither. So I'm going to go out of here, go back to my just vanilla keyboard here and click on Q. Then it's going to list all the commands that are under Q. So we have Start to Playhead, which is what I want, and then Source Timeline View. Let's click on Source Timeline View here, and let's just get rid of the Q shortcut right there. Great. We're going to do the same thing with W. So let's go ahead and open up W, Dynamic Trim Mode. Let's take that off, okay? And then we're going to look up Control-Shift right bracket, which is End to Playhead. Let's make this W. Great. So now we have Q and W set to start and end to playhead. The other thing that I like to do is set this S key to split clip, which is Control backslash split clips right here. So I'm going to actually set this to S. It's going to say, hey, S is already something. Let's say, okay, assign. Then let's go back to S and take away toggle slip slide. Boom, like that. Now I have Q and W and S, and those are really the only keyboard shortcuts that I change for Resolve. Everything else seems to make pretty good sense to me, but those are the ones that are really nice because I can use 3 fingers to do a lot of editing, and I'll show you the power of that here in just a second. But this looks good. I want to make sure to save this. So I'll go up to these 3 dots and say Save as New Preset. We'll call this Intro Shortcuts, and okay. Great. So now this is saved. I can close this, and now we should be able to hit Q, and that's going to trim the edge, and W, that should trim the edge, and S should split this. So I have 3 fingers that can do a lot of these editing tasks. So check this out, especially if you're editing something where you have a lot of footage or whether you're just trying to cut down maybe a podcast or something like that. You can go through here and just look at the waveforms like this and see when somebody's talking, right? And so you can split it with S, and then you can get rid of this part with a ripple trim to start. So Q, like that. See how this works? S, Q, just like that. And I can do this by just aiming with my playhead and then Q, right? Just like that. And I can trim this whole thing and cut out all of the silence really, really quickly just by looking at the waveforms and trimming it to those waveforms. So that's a great way to cut down things that have a lot of talking and just keep the talking. In fact, that's how my editor, Sam, is cutting this tutorial. Pretty much same thing, QWS. What I would recommend doing, especially if you haven't edited before, is I would double click on each of these clips, set the in and out for whatever part looks interesting, and drag it down here into the timeline. Add these all to the timeline and then kind of mix them together and put together a story in the edit page. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit and use a timeline that I've already worked on just so I can show you some more cool stuff. And to show you this kind of stuff, I'm going to import a bin. So just like you can open a project or export a project, you can export just a bin or a timeline in Resolve. It's really helpful. I can right click here in the empty space in my media pool and go down to import bin. And I'm going to select a bin that says Casey only. You will not have this bin, okay? Say it with me. I will not have this bin. This is Casey only. All right? It's not included in the files. This is just for my demo purposes, okay? So we're going to open, and that's how you import a bin. Inside of this bin, I'm going to have a couple of timelines that are going to help us learn some stuff. Just double click on my edit demo thing here. And here we have an edit that I made using this footage here on the edit page. Let's take a look.
Whoa.
Go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Fine. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to open, and that's how you import a bin. Inside of this bin, I'm going to have a couple of timelines that are going to help us learn some stuff. Just double click on my edit demo thing here. And here we have an edit that I made using this footage here on the edit page. Let's take a look.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Fine. Okay. All right, check it out.
What was that?
So it's a cohesive story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The kids show up, drop their bikes. This is what they see. They argue. The guy starts to walk forward. He's nervous. She's nervous. It moves. Their bikes. So it's a cohesive story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The kids show up, drop their bikes. This is what they see. They argue. The guy starts to walk forward. He's nervous. She's nervous. It moves. They kind of panic, and they go in to investigate. Now, a couple of things to point out here about this edit that I made. One clip here has a split, but there's no cut. We're not really cutting to a different clip. It's just split here for essentially no reason. What we can do is we can actually repair this by right-clicking here on this edit point and saying delete through edit. And that's going to make this into one clip, which is going to be helpful later when we're doing color. There's no reason to have a clip split if you're not going to cut to a different clip or severely change that clip. By the way, a great way to move up and down the timeline when you're zoomed in is to click and hold the middle button on your mouse and drag. And what that will do is let you kind of grab this timeline and move it back and forth. And that actually works for just about everything in Resolve. I can move this